Cold blue mountains, towering cavernous cliffs, hot volcanic springs, inviting tranquil waters, dense steamy jungles, misty cloud forests, and dark enchanted woodlands. These are the landscapes forged across millions of years that make up the diverse topography of Southeast Asia. Even more diverse are the peoples who first populated this land. For thousands of years, they journeyed across tremendous distances, confronting the elements, and carving out their existence in the most unlikely of places. These are the peoples of Southeast Asia, and this is their story, an intriguing testament to human ingenuity and survival. Driven perhaps in part by a sense of adventure, but certainly by their survival instincts. The earliest migrants into Southeast Asia were rewarded with bountiful game for their hunting and plentiful vegetation for their gathering. They soon mastered these arduous tasks. Then they learned to domesticate the wild animals and to farm the vast lands that this region offered them. Our story begins at the turn of the 21st century, but it could begin at any time in their history, when the habitats of these early peoples were not much different from those of today. The main change over time has been their gradual transition from nomadic hunting and gathering origins to a semi-sedentary agrarian lifestyle. When such a transition takes place for any people, the land and the climate are key factors in their successful survival. Many of the original migrants descended from the highest place on earth, the Tibetan Plateau. So the gentler Himalayan foothills they encountered were likely a welcome sight. With a hotter climate, a longer growing season, and greater arable land, it's not surprising that many halted their journey as soon as they arrived here. Their descendants can be found today living off the same land. But as the population expanded, space in these vast lands became a premium, and competition to dominate forced others to seek their destinies farther afield. Some followed the downstream flow of the mighty Mekong River. Eventually, they arrived at its end and settled there. Others branched away from the river's path and found their way to present-day Burma, Cambodia, Laos, mainland Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. For most, this was the end of their journey. But some ventured a small distance from land and on into water. A few more regarded that water as just another frontier, and they navigated across it, populating present-day Brunei, Insular Malaysia, Indonesia, and East Timor. Others travelled their own migration route and became the first people to populate the Philippines. As each of these areas was settled, people gathered and used the natural resources available to construct the shelters they would live in. They were strikingly similar throughout the whole region, and this similarity continues to the present day. This one belongs to an isolated Lao family in northern Cambodia. A second, an Aita house in the Philippines, could be its cousin. In northern Thailand, the Lahu raise their houses off the ground, learning the lesson from centuries of rainy seasons. Older Manong houses reveal the roof thatching skills those people had developed and applied to draw the rainwater away from the house. But just a few hundred kilometers north, Kachok, Krung, and Tampuan houses show these people's preference for the Lahu solution. Many claimed their stake to the land and constructed their dwelling in isolation. But it didn't take long before practical forces like economics led to the village becoming the dominant unit of social organization. Villages were built using very basic construction techniques. Mostly the same techniques are still used today. As basic as the construction is, some of these buildings have stood for centuries, and some may yet stand for centuries to come. The best examples of this traditional construction are to be seen in Karo villages on the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Home to as many as 12 families, their communal longhouses are up to 300 years old. This boy will be one of the last Karo to be born in a longhouse, as they are finally beginning to fail the test of time and become unsafe to live in. One day, ruins like these will be found only in museums and will be the final record of the Karo's remarkable engineering accomplishments. The Karo aren't the only indigenous people in Southeast Asia experiencing changes to their settlements. We can see evidence of it in these Chrai villages also. While some Krung villages remain traditional, others are following the modern trend. This one shows little sign of its past. And these Krung villages are about to get their first modern houses. In rural Burma, the same pattern is to be observed in Karen villages. In the Philippines, a TV antenna suggests this Aita house is trying to enter the 20th century. But closer inspection reveals that it is its neighbor that has succeeded. In southern Vietnam and central Cambodia, Ede and Manong villages are no exception. Nor is this Yao village in northern Thailand. Some Wa and Palaung villages in Burma are almost fully modernized by now. The most dramatic evidence of these changes can be seen on the mountainous border between Vietnam and China. These Hmong men carry concrete slabs weighing more than they do up the steep slopes that lead to their homes. The final results are breathtaking. Outside a Lahu village in northern Thailand, we learn of the impact these changes have on the culture of the people. As we enter one of these houses, we see that modernization has had little impact on their inside. The facilities are very basic, yet they have sustained their occupants through many years. Whether they are staying at home to raise children, leaving home to work on the land, or just at home eating a simple lunch, daily life for the peoples of Southeast Asia revolves around their settlements, as it always has. The houses in these settlements are usually home to large extended families. Just feeding everyone can sometimes be the most challenging part of daily life. A typical day might begin like it does for these Palaung villagers, harvesting their crops, then carrying them back to their village. Rice, the most staple crop, is first chaffed and then left to dry, as we see in this Manong village in Cambodia. The Lahu chaff their rice a second time after it has dried. Rice is so important to the Lahu that its preparation is the main focus of each village's morning activities. Pulverizing and boiling are among the many techniques used. In another Lahu village, a pig has just been slaughtered. It is cleaned and then meticulously shaven using large, very sharp knives. Only when fully shaven is it time to butcher it. No part of the animal goes to waste, and the entire village will enjoy a rare feast. Other indigenous peoples begin their day with the simplest of tasks, gathering clean water. Most of them live in remote areas where an aqueduct, a pump, a visit to a stream, or a village well provide this most basic of human needs. The Inta people live in Burma's Shan state. They begin their day setting out on Inle Lake to catch fish. Some prefer to spear the fish, while others rely on trapping their catch in huge nets. To help in this endeavor, the Inta have developed a unique rowing technique found nowhere else in the world. As Inle Lake and its main town, Nuang Shui, fade into the distance, we set out for a Karen village where two young boys have fallen sick. In this village, we're reminded of the importance of clean drinking water. A modern filtration pump is used to purify the water that caused the boys' sickness. and they're back on their feet within a couple of days. Subsistence agriculture has always been the mainstay of the peoples of Southeast Asia. Working the fields is still today a largely manual occupation, just like it was for their ancestors. When their ancestors first arrived here, they mastered the land by a farming technique known as swidden cultivation. This technique involves first clearing the vegetation and then burning what remains to uncover the underlying topsoil. This ancient technique is still widely practiced in the region today in a planned, controlled and sustainable way. It yields high crop returns, but at the same time is very labor intensive. Children are not spared from this labor. Indeed, they play an integral part in the agriculture and in the economy of every village. Manual labour is still the norm in this part of the world. Whether the need for the labour is to repair holes in a road in Burma or to build a new bridge in rural Cambodia. As we observe people at work, we might begin to challenge our own notions of traditional gender roles. Manual labour is supplemented by beasts of burden. And very slowly is being replaced by mechanization. As time passed, agricultural techniques improved and became more efficient. The reach of arable land was expanded with the use of clearing and irrigation techniques. Eventually, this moved the balance away from mere subsistence, and food surpluses became common. After many generations of struggling just to survive, the marketplace was born, transforming the lives of the people forever. Although food surpluses led to widespread trade and greater overall prosperity, they also increased the need for labor. Children were expected to help, and children selling food produce and other goods to help fuel the local economy are a common sight in the modern version of these centers of commerce. In an Aita village in the Philippines, a young girl sells products from all over Asia in her bamboo shop. And a similar scene in a remote Tampuan village in Cambodia reveals the reach of the now globalized marketplace in which today's indigenous people live. Commerce in one form or another is becoming the norm everywhere we go. Traditional indigenous crafts have also found a home in the commercial marketplace. In Burma, a Padaung mother teaches her daughter to weave on a traditional loom. Her daughter will not wear the clothes she is making, but will sell them instead. Some women still weave only to clothe their own children. A Palaung woman makes a sarong for her daughter. A Cham woman weaves a scarf for her sister. And the Taidam people still weave almost all their clothes. But in this village, a young Inta girl is learning to weave as the apprentice of a local employer. And in this Lisu village, another young girl weaves clothes only to sell to tourists. On the Indonesian island of Java, the commercialization of different crafts can be observed. First, we see one that has been practiced by the Javanese for centuries, silversmithing. Next, we see another age-old Javanese craft, woodworking. These Javanese woodworkers make some of the most intricate decorations imaginable. Puppet making is another traditional Javanese craft that is practiced by the skilled hands of artists on this small island. Finally, we visit northern Thailand, where we find a different style of silversmithing, along with jewelry making, embroidery, and some of the most beautiful painting anywhere in the world. Returning to Inle Lake in Burma, we visit once again the Inta. This time to witness the traditional blacksmithing skills from which they still make a living, supplying and repairing the boats of their brethren fishermen. And we return to a Lahu village in Thailand to see an even older form of blacksmithing. As they enter the 21st century, many people find their livelihood from one of the legacies of the 20th century, pollution. In Indonesia, Javanese men scavenge through garbage looking for anything they can sell. And their trade is not confined to Java. Outside the Philippine capital Manila, in the suburb of Payatas, we see an entire village of people who make their living in the same way. But the most shocking example of livelihood that we can see in Southeast Asia today is in the increasing number of children who are sold and trafficked into bonded slave labor. All for the benefit of today's global marketplace. Although the modern world is bringing changes to the lives and the livelihoods of the peoples of Southeast Asia, many find ways to resist these changes and still observe the rituals and customs of their ancestors from thousands of years ago. As they first migrated in search of new lands, the original settlers to each area were initially faced with the challenges of basic survival. Among the most successful were the Aita. Soon after they arrived in the Philippines, the Aita learned how to make fire from bamboo. But their use of this local plant didn't end with fire. Bamboo is as strong as steel, and as the Aita became masters of the jungle, they discovered other ways to use its resources. This ancient knowledge and skill survives among the Aita to this day. It is no coincidence that the Aita were chosen to train veterans of the American War in Vietnam in the techniques of jungle survival. Exploring the horizons of their new land, everywhere they went, the settlers found no prior human influence. They eventually came to regard the land as magical, even mystical, when generation after generation it continued to provide for their every need. They formed their understanding of the world through their relationship with the land, and the knowledge they gained became the basis for a belief system known today as Animism. They embraced that belief in ceremonies of worship. Over time, these ceremonies became codified and ritualized into the same practices of animism that are still followed by many people. While the Aka protect their houses from evil spirits with ornately carved totems on their roofs, the Lahu and the Manok tie streamers to the roofs of their houses to afford them the same protection. In an An village in Burma, an entire room is dedicated to the souls of animals sacrificed to the spirits. A Manong man doesn't only dress like his ancestors did, he also follows their custom of planting trees outside his house to pay homage to the spirits of the buffaloes he has sacrificed. On the island of Borneo, a house still preserves the skulls of enemies captured over 300 years ago in the days of ritual headhunting practiced by that island's Kadazan Dusun tribe. And outside a Tampuan village in Cambodia, any would-be intruder is warned by this blockade to stay away from the animistic ritual that is taking place in the village. These rituals are often accompanied by music and drinking. Here, a Manong wedding is the reason for the celebration. The next morning, large, empty rice wine jars show how much the villagers celebrated. In this Krung village, the reason for the celebration is the birth of a child. Young men in Karo Batak villages learn from an early age that they will inherit and later pass on their elders' musical traditions. This Bajau woman, though, plays gamelan at the local marketplace merely for her own entertainment. Tampuan villagers celebrate the construction of a new home, and a young Hmong girl appearing to chew on a leaf is in fact playing a traditional tune on the oldest musical instrument known to her people. Just like different peoples adopted their own variations of these ceremonial customs, they also found ways to express their individual identity through their dress and their adornment. Perhaps best known for this expression are the Paraong women of Burma, who wear their neck rings from an early age. This young Lahu girl's simple earrings announce to her people that she has begun looking for a husband. Girls in these cultures often marry before reaching full puberty. And they begin preparing for their role in child rearing before they have entered into adolescence. A young Shan girl wears face cream because that is the tradition of her people. For Aka women, tradition dictates the wearing of ornate silver headdress, which is the finishing touch to the Aka's elaborate and colourful traditional dress. Equally colourful are the Lisu, the Manong, and the Palaong. The An prefer more sober colours, as do their Burmese cousins, the Wa. Most of these people still make their own clothes. Here, a Hmong woman makes from indigo the dye that is the hallmark of her people's dress. Hmong women are also masterful seamstresses, a skill that is still handed down to each new generation. And in this Krung village, this lady still spins her own yarn, although she is among the last of the Krung to practice this ancient craft. Since the dawn of time, the peoples of this region have celebrated their beliefs. The ancient temples at Angkor in Cambodia bear witness to the spread and adoption of Hinduism and the impact that this had on the worshipping rituals of the people who lived here. More recently, Buddhism has followed the spread of Hinduism, and it is today the most practiced of any major religion in Southeast Asia. Its believers are no less committed than their Hindu cousins to celebrating their beliefs. One of the best ways to observe any people's rituals and customs is to attend a wedding. In this village in Burma, the Karen people have given us the opportunity. While the bride and groom are busy preparing for the ceremony, the guests sit and wait patiently, some drinking tea while they wait. Finally, the bride and groom are presented to the waiting guests by the Master of Ceremonies, who is also the priest. Prayers for the couple are offered at a Buddhist shrine. Then the wedding ceremony itself takes place, ending with the blessing of the marriage by holy water. After the wedding ceremony, and with the congregation listening attentively, the marriage vows are exchanged. On the Indonesian island of Sumatra, we are given another opportunity to witness intimately Indigenous people's customs. This time at a Karo Batak wedding. Members of the couple's local community have turned out in their splendid and colourful traditional dress, and they and the wedding party begin by greeting the arriving guests. Before the wedding can be officially sanctioned, the bride's male relatives tally her dowry payment. If her husband-to-be hasn't paid the dowry in full, the proceedings will go no further. Once the dowry payment is accounted for, traditional Karo dancing takes centre stage. This custom dictates that the men and the women dance apart from one another, except for the happy couple themselves. Then the wedding party poses for photos. And as the guests listen, the couple are offered advice by members of their community on how to make their marriage long and successful. Behind the scenes, female members of the groom's family have been busy all day preparing food for the guests. The food is cooked using traditional culinary techniques by male members of his family. It is also eaten traditionally using only one's hands. When it comes to gift giving, most of the gifts are practical household items. In comparison, a batik cloth may seem simple, but the act of tying it around the couple is symbolic of the wish for a happy future. An even more symbolic gift is a young hen that is still alive. The Karo Batak believe that if a couple receive this special gift on their wedding day, they will bear many healthy children. Eventually, we must say goodbye to our hosts and wish them a long, happy and prosperous future. We leave Sumatra and journey east to the Indonesian island of Java. Here we visit a workshop where gamelan instruments are still made using traditional techniques. After firing in hot charcoal, the gamelan drums are painstakingly polished and tuned to give them their unique sound, a process that takes many days. Our last custom comes from northern Vietnam. It was here, thousands of years ago, that local farmers invented an unusual fusion of celebration, theatre and puppetry, known as water puppetry. The puppets spend 2 hours recounting the region's farming history, while their masters stand almost entirely submerged under the water. In Thailand's capital, Bangkok, we see the modern version of a once traditional Buddhist water festival. As their rituals and their customs begin to yield to modern influences, the peoples of Southeast Asia are now faced with finding their way in a new world. One that brings the greatest challenges they've ever faced. Fire and gunpowder, even the wheel altered the lives of people long ago. But innovation and change are constant forces. The Hmong in this village divert stream water so they can use gravity to pound their rice and free up human labor. In a neighboring Hmong village, a stream is also diverted, but this time to generate clean, sustainable and free electricity. In some other indigenous villages, a diesel electricity generator allows today's generation to watch TV and to imitate their viewing experience. Even karaoke has spread from its Japanese origin and is now common in many of these villages. Despite their exposure to these trends of the modern world, most people in Southeast Asia continue to live in places that are hard to reach. Simple daily tasks such as bathing and laundry are open communal events. Outside visitors are often regarded with natural shyness, surprise, and when they see black skin for the first time, sheer curiosity. But this isolation will not last forever. Change is inevitable. We see it take on the form of a faster but less reliable means of transportation, as well as the development of new infrastructure. These developments open up vast areas of land that are home to millions of people. Modern building materials now find their way to the remotest of places. So in this Tongyo village in Burma, we see traditional bamboo lattice making way for bricks and mortar. we can observe the same kind of changes in village after village. While the development of infrastructure makes these remote places easier to visit, modernization makes them more attractive. Tourism has rapidly become popular in many of the once unreachable parts of Southeast Asia. Photo opportunities are everywhere, and for many children, posing has become a new way of contributing to the labour force and to the local economy. A striking example of the impact of tourism can be found in the northern Vietnamese town of Sapa. Looking more like the Alps than the subtropics in which it is located, Sapa was once a tiny market and trading centre for the outlying indigenous villages. Today, tourists flock here by the hundreds every weekend to buy handicrafts from the local indigenous children and then photograph them. Having lost their appeal as photo opportunities, many of the older children work instead as local tour guides. They will take you into their villages, where catering to tourists has also become an industry. In this Dao village, a traditional house has been turned into a tourist cafe. At the other end of Vietnam, a young coho girl touts her embroidery to any tourists that come by. Travel from here to remote parts of Burma, and at every point in between, we can now buy parts of the once isolated local cultures. Although tourists are bringing outside influences, they are not the first to bring about change. This Aita child is being raised in the Christian faith, even though her grandparents had no knowledge of it. Young boys in her village now grow up with basketball for their main pastime. And thanks to electricity and TV, the youngest generation aspires to becoming champions of the pool table. But these young Tampuan men prefer the gambling table. These changes to their culture are most often resisted by elder women, such as these An and these Bajau women. This Palaung woman displays her preference for her people's customary dress, while the world around her undergoes a facelift. And many Karen women seem to want little contact with the world that they know exists beyond their simple and comfortable village. Alongside their husbands and brothers, though, these elder women share a waning affinity to their cultural heritage. And compared to their children, they are sometimes hardly recognizable as belonging to the same ethnic groups. The Mekong River has always played a part in the lives of the Khmer people. So it is no surprise that boat racing has long been a part of their culture. Victory celebrations have always been accompanied by traditional music. While some traditional aspects of the celebrations remain, today Western multinationals see advertising potential here through the fusion of that tradition and corporate sponsorship. Burma is home to many festivals. Of those commonly attended by its indigenous people, the festival of Borgyo in Shan State is the most popular. It begins as the 10th full moon of the lunar year is half grown and culminates on its night of fullness. Although a mainly religious festival dedicated to the annual worshipping of Buddha images, artisans have always camped out here, ready to sell their wares. Recent additions on offer include a Ferris wheel that is powered by local Shan men, who turn it by climbing around inside it. As the final night of the festival arrives, the mood quickly changes from religion to revelry. The Shan men tirelessly operate the Ferris wheel in the same way as before. And families enjoy this strange new contraption that can send them soaring up into the warm night air. Eventually, even an isolated country like Burma has to enter the 21st century. The modern-day Borgyo Festival is a striking example of how it is beginning to achieve it. We come full circle back to Thailand and the once traditional Buddhist water festival, Songkran. While this festival remains for some a symbolic cleansing with water at the beginning of the Lunar New Year, for mainstream Thai society it has become an indulgence of water fighting. Even among Thailand's indigenous peoples in the far north, the lure of the modern version of this cultural pastime has become irresistible. But nowhere is it played out on a grander scale than in the capital, Bangkok, where the water fighting can get so unruly that parts of the city come to a complete standstill. How will the peoples of Southeast Asia respond to the changes in the world that surrounds them? How will they assimilate those changes, learn to live alongside them and survive? The answer lies in education. But what to the peoples of Southeast Asia is education? This An man may not look educated, but he is. He is educated in basket weaving, which was once all the education his ancestors needed to survive. This Lao man has chosen to learn a more modern skill, mechanical repair. In a Shan village in Burma, women still teach their children how to make bamboo fans, centuries after their ancestors invented that craft. The only thing these Kavet boys have ever known is farming. So even before reaching their teens, they are already masters of their land. They will grow to become grandmasters, just like their Lao, Inta, and Palaung cousins. Among the Palaung, the Mahout, or elephant master, is a man of high education and status. In Vietnam, Coho villagers know where to go to collect their firewood. Across the border in Cambodia, these Manong know how to take advantage of modern technology to grind their rice. This Palaung lady in Burma dries her tea harvest in the way she has been taught. A Krung man practices his thatching skills, and a Thai man paints to earn his living. While in the jungle of northern Cambodia, the Tampuan mine their land for the semi-precious gemstones that they have always known lie deep below the ground. The one thing that all these people have in common is the kind of education they have always needed to survive. Today's generation carries the legacy of their ancestors' knowledge and discoveries, and has also embraced many outside influences. But young people today are thirsty for a kind of education that their ancestors and their parents never had. One that will allow them to enter, understand, and live successfully in the modern world. They know that they cannot survive on their traditions and their customs alone, and that their past will mean nothing without their future. It is with these children that 21st century Indigenous education can begin. Education can take on many forms. In this Krung village, a simple poster educates the inhabitants to use mosquito nets as a deterrent to malaria. In a Manong village, a TV and video player are the only way the inhabitants get to learn anything of the world outside of their own. And a rare outside visitor brings to this isolated Palaung village not only the tools of education, pen and paper, but also a lesson in how to use these strange instruments of modern technology. The kind of education most familiar to us, formal schooling, is also the one least familiar to the people of Southeast Asia. There are exceptions, and in this Aita village in the Philippines, the children and their lesson look no different from those of a mainstream Filipino school. These Chire children look like they are also enjoying the benefit of a modern classroom. But theirs is only a makeshift school thrown together on the one day of the week when the teacher visits their village. Their Kavet neighbours do have a modern school. Yet as we go inside it, we realise how basic the facilities are, and we begin to understand the challenges that the teachers face. Things are no different in a Tay village in Vietnam. Back in Cambodia, in another Chire village, an old school has just been replaced by a new one. And the community looks forward with anticipation to the benefits that it will bring. We only have to journey a few kilometers to see in yet another Chire village the benefits that their modern school has already brought to them. The girl in the center was one of the first to attend this school and is now a graduate and role model for other children in the village. In Manong villages also, we might be heartened by the sight of the first Manong children to enjoy even a basic formal education. In Vietnam, these Hmong children line up in their schoolyard under their teacher's supervision during recess. The scene appears much the same as one we might see in a Western school. But the moment a child steps out of line, the scene becomes less familiar, and the teacher is swift to deliver her discipline by corporal punishment. The greatest obstacle to formal Indigenous education is literacy. The teacher visiting this remote school is Khmer. While she can write in Khmer, the language of her Cambodian students, Manong, is one that has no alphabet. Krung is also a pre-literate language, despite the noble attempt of this young Krung man to write it using the Khmer alphabet. Around 5,000 years after its invention, writing is finally bringing literacy to these same indigenous peoples. Among the first to benefit from having a new writing system invented for their language are Cambodia's Tampuan. This man is one of the very first Tampuan people to be taught the new writing system. And his eager students are attending one of the first Tampuan literacy classes. After their training, they will return to their villages and spread this literacy, until one day all Tampuan people will be able to read and write the language they have always spoken. Just like this young Tampuan man already can. There is surely nothing unusual about the school in this remote Krung village. From the outside, we can see that it is just as simple as the many other schools we have visited in indigenous villages. Once we go inside, we can see the students studying diligently, and it appears they understand the value of education. What does seem unusual in such a remote indigenous village is the high attendance rate and the observation that all the students have pen, paper and books. For this is no ordinary school after all. It is the first in Krung history where the students are being taught using writing in their own language. With the barrier of literacy removed, there can be no doubt that indigenous people are just as capable of academic achievement as anyone else. Whether the technology we use is ancient or modern, we now have the opportunity to deliver the education that Southeast Asia's indigenous people need to survive in today's world. Will we watch the sun set on that opportunity and leave these people out to dry? Or will we understand the simple dreams that children have? Will we light the way and share the hope that only education can bring?